Bonjour. Today we are gathered here in the press gallery to shed light on the ongoing cultural genocide taking place in Tibet. What the CCP calls the Tibetan Autonomous Region, though in reality there is neither autonomy nor freedom. We are honored to welcome Sikyong Penpa Tsering, the President of the Central Tibetan Administration, known to many as the Tibetan government in exile, headquartered in Dharamsala, India. Without further ado, I am honored to introduce the President of the Central Tibetan Administration, and after all, Tibet is Tibet. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters of Canada, I came on Monday, and Tuesday happened to be the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation of what happened in Canada with the residential schools, with the theme of every child matters, every child do matter. And Canada has gone through these kind of experiences in your history, and you have now realized that this was the wrong thing to do. And the events that were organized on Tuesday, for me personally, it was quite relieving that the government of Canada and the people of Canada realized the truth of what happened, recognized the truth, and then tried to reconcile and then move forward. Of course, what happened in the past cannot be undone, but we can definitely look forward to a better future. I really appreciate the Canadian government and the people of Canada for recognizing the truth and then willing to reconcile and to live in harmony with each other. Of course, this will also help heal the mental wounds of people who have gone through all these sufferings. Unfortunately, the same thing is happening in Tibet today. When you ask the Chinese government why colonial-style boarding schools in Tibet, and they point out to Canada and say, what did Canada do to its First Nation people, or the Americans with the natives, or the Australians with the Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders, or the New Zealanders with the Maoris, and even Sami people in the Scandinavian region. So what they say and what they mean is they know what these countries did, and now they are deliberately, knowingly doing it to the Tibetans to eradicate our language, our identity, all our language and religion, which forms a bedrock of Tibetan identity. Just to give you an overview, we have never ever been subjugated by any other foreign power, including China, till Communist China invaded Tibet. And we have a very rich civilization. Tibet is located in a very strategic location in Central Asia with borders with so many countries, and we lived in peace with all our neighbors through the centuries. The plateau of Tibet came up as a tectonic shift because of the tectonic shift between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, and it's the highest plateau in the world. We always lived in the mountains. The average altitude of Tibet is about 16,000 feet. When you think about Tibet, it's not easy to come to travel to Tibet, or it's not easy for Tibetans also to travel out of Tibet. So we remained isolated for very long, but we have maintained our values. Tibetans are devout Buddhists for the last 1,300 years. We have a language that is one among the 15 oldest languages in this world today, and we have a dictionary with 223 volumes that speaks for the importance of Tibetan language. The geostrategic importance of Tibet is not only important for Tibet in that region, but for the whole region. And then the environmental importance of Tibet is also not only for the Tibetans, but for the whole region and for the whole world. And we have a culture that promotes peace and nonviolence and harmony. And these messages are manifested in the form of His Holiness to the world. Of course, we lost our country. It was a bad thing for us. But the world gained the Dalai Lama. And as Dean mentioned just now, we just celebrated His Holiness' 90th birthday. And His Holiness is one of the very few people who have been honored by the Canadian government as an honorary citizen. We are thankful to the Governor General for sending a message on His Holiness' 90th birthday, and I'm sure everybody by now knows that His Holiness has decided to continue the Ganden Podang trust of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who will also be responsible for choosing his reincarnations in the future. And His Holiness has also confirmed that his lineage will continue. But one thing the international community has to understand is when we talk about reincarnation, that happens only after the death of the person. So His Holiness keeps saying, I will live for another 2 decades and more. Since this Tibetan New Year, His Holiness says, I'll live up to 130 years of age. And I keep telling the Chinese, this message is for you, because you are waiting for this Dalai Lama to die. But His Holiness keeps saying that he will live long. So let us see whether His Holiness the Dalai Lama outlives the Communist Party or the Communist Party outlives His Holiness. And I also want to leave you with this thought that some of my friends say the dragon is biting at us. So I tell them, dragon at one time was very weak. Who made the dragon so powerful to be able to bite at you? It's the United States, it's the European Union, it's Japan, it's Taiwan. All the countries who have been involved in making China for what it's today. But now, knowing that the dragon is biting at you, if you still keep feeding the dragon, then whose fault is it? I think there are plans for recalibration of relations with China by the Canadian government and improved trade relations. But if you look at the 2024 numbers, then you can see that the total trade of 87 billion, Canada exports only 30 billion and imports 57 billion. So you have a trade deficit, huge trade deficit, 87 billion. So you have a trade deficit of 57 billion with the Chinese. And with improved trade relations, now you will have to watch whether you are going to buy more from China or you're going to sell more to China, which is beneficial to Canada, not buying more from China and enriching China to carry out all the things they have been doing with Belt and Road initiatives, creating debt economies, and, exacerbating the whole political situation in the region. Because of China's activities, defense expenses of all the countries in the region have increased. So China should take responsibility for this and stop its hegemonistic and colonial mindset and give freedom to its people. And in this 21st century, everybody should be able to live in dignity and in freedom. And that's all we are asking for through the middle way. We are not asking for independence or separation from China, but we are willing to live with the Chinese people. We have lived with the Chinese for centuries. Even if we don't have an Indian mythological god like Hanuman, who's supposed to have the power to lift mountains. So we don't have a Hanuman to lift Tibet out of that place and put it somewhere in the Atlantic or Pacific near Canada. Whenever we get to go back, we have to live with the Chinese. We have to live with the Nepalese, Bhutanese, Indians as our neighbors. So why not live in peace with each other as neighbors? And that is all we are asking for, nothing more. And there's nobody that we can appeal to. The UN is the most undemocratic institution in the world. It cannot implement its own resolutions. That is why we reach out to governments like Canada, whose foreign policy pillars are based on Canada's security, prosperity, and values. So Canada's values are rooted in democracy, in freedom, and that is what we are asking your help for from the government, and also some financial assistance for education, because education is being impacted in Tibet. And if this goes on, the colonial-style boarding schools in Tibet goes on for another 2-3 decades, it's going to be very, very detrimental and consequential for the Tibetans, because one whole generation of Tibetans would be turned into Chinese. And that is a very, very frightening consequence that we are looking at. And since you have stopped the residential schools and are trying to make up for it, and please make sure that it does not happen in any other part of the world, including Tibet. Thank you.